Today, we're wrapping up our 3-part series on college education for ministry families. In our first 2 episode series on college education for ministry families. In our first 2 episodes, we've of the Pastors and Money podcast. Today, we're wrapping up our 3-part series on college education for ministry families. In our first 2 episodes, we focused on preparing ahead to avoid student debt. But what if you're currently in college, or your student is, or they're about to start? That's what we'll tackle today. Before we dive in, I've been reflecting on a powerful pattern of mentorship in the book of Acts. I love the book of Acts. It's just one of my favorites. But we see Barnabas going out of his way to find Paul and bring him into the ministry at Antioch. And then later, we see Paul and Barnabas doing the same thing with John Mark, bringing him along on their first missionary journey. And this pattern makes me wonder, who are we bringing alongside us in ministry today? It doesn't have to be a formal mentorship. Sometimes that's the right thing, sometimes it's not. Maybe it's asking someone to help you set up for an event, or having them shadow you while you do hospital visits, or while you plan out a banquet. Maybe it's letting them be your armor bearer at a conference or outreach. These seemingly small opportunities to serve and learn can be the starting point for developing future ministry leaders. So my challenge to you is to think about that. Think about, who are you bringing alongside in ministry today? Now let's dive into some practical solutions for college students. This is the final episode in our 3-part series on sending your PK to college debt-free. Today we're focusing on strategies for current college students or those about to start college. So this applies to you if you have a student who is in college already, or about to start. It also applies to you if you are a pastor or studying to be a pastor and you are in college right now. And you realize, hey, I see so many people around me graduating with crippling student loan debt. I don't want any of that. What do I do? I'm already in school. If you or your student is already in college and facing debt, don't lose hope. It's not too late to make a change. Let's go ahead and dive in. So first, we need to address mindset. We need to believe that it's actually possible to stop taking out student loans now. All throughout this series, I've addressed mindset with 2 specific things: that we need to believe it's possible to graduate debt-free, and we need to just commit to not taking out debt. Now, how does this apply when you're already in school and you may already have student loans? You're going to commit, this is my challenge to you or to your student, to commit to avoiding any additional debt. The average student loan burden is over $30,000, and with private school loans, it can be over $100,000. It's absolutely insane. And so wherever you are today, you can decide from here forward, or from this semester forward, no more debt. Make no more debt your non-negotiable stance. I would really encourage you to do that. You'll still get benefit out of this episode if you don't take that stance, but here's why that's important. If debt is an option, you won't see the other options available to you. You won't see the possibilities and the different choices that you can make. So now let's go ahead and get into our content for today, and what are the different things you can do to say, I'm not, from going here forward, we're not going to take out any more debt. And then we'll be able to deal with the debt that you have after that. This process, if you're already in school, or if your student is already in school, may require some lifestyle change, and it will definitely require some sacrifice. Remember, those sacrifices are temporary. It's for a purpose, it's for a short term, and it's to get you to a place where you've graduated, you've got your degree, you've got a good job that you're going into, and you're not carrying this burden of decisions from 4 years ago. So be willing to commit to the challenge. And okay, now to start off, we're going to reassess your current situation, or your student's current situation. So think about, what is your career goal? Do I have a career goal that can actually earn a paycheck? Does this degree program align with my career goal? Is this degree necessary for my career goal, or will it result in a significantly higher salary? Because the purpose of college is not to get a college experience. The purpose of college is to get the preparation and the education necessary to get to a job that will pay, and that will be a job that you love and that you can do. It doesn't have to be your forever job. A lot of us do change career paths at some point in our adult lives. But the purpose of college is to prepare you for this next step. So be researching starting salaries in your field, be researching job prospects, and make sure that you're not paying $100,000 for a career that's going to get you $30,000, $40,000 a year. And you may think that I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. I've seen people's budgets with that student loan burden and with that salary that is just way under what it needs to be for them to be able to live and make those payments. So if you're addressing your situation, you're like, hey, I don't actually know what I want to do when I grow up. That's okay. I would take some time to pause. If you're in the middle of the semester, do your best this semester, but create some space in your schedule to be processing and thinking about and having a plan before you commit to another semester. It's not so much of an issue if you're in community college and you're working on those general ed classes, because you're going to need those regardless of what degree you get, and you're not spending a lot on it. But if you're already in a 4-year school and you're like, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, you may be in a situation where you may just need to finish the degree that you're in, depending on it's going to depend on your situation. As they say in the book Extreme Ownership, stop, look around, make a plan. What do I want to do? If I don't know what I want to do, how can I find out? Maybe you can work with a career counselor on your campus or with a career coach. If you need connection with a career coach, I can help you connect with somebody. But make sure you have a plan for what you're going to do for a job after school and how your degree aligns with that. Depending on your situation, you might need to consider transferring to a more affordable school. That's not fun. We never want to do it, but you might need to consider that process. I'm not saying that for everybody, but you may be in a situation where after everything we talk about today, you've looked at your situation, you're like, I can't afford to go to school here, and I don't have time right now to make the money to make that happen. Then you might need to consider transferring. If you're going to do that, you need to be working with your counselors at the new school to figure out what's the transfer process, and make sure don't check out on the semester that you're in. Continue to do your very best while you're there, even while you're making a plan to move forward. You might also consider looking into accelerated degree programs that may be able to save you on some tuition, and also save you on some of your living expenses in school because you'll finish up sooner. So that's totally going to depend on what kind of a degree you or your student is pursuing. So just be keeping that in mind, and I'd be asking your school counselors, oh, that means you should actually talk to them. I know I didn't when I was an undergrad, but you should actually be talking to them, talking about, hey, I'm concerned about cost, or I want to be able to get out in the workforce sooner. What are some ways that I can make this go faster while still being successful and doing my best in school? Now let's talk about scholarships. Scholarships are still a possibility, even if you're already a student or if your student is already in college, right? So make sure you're filling out the FAFSA every year. Make sure to fill it out on time to meet the deadlines for your school. This is really important. Now, the FAFSA is going to offer you different kinds of aid based on what they determine your need is. Now, their determination of your need may not be in agreement with your determination, and the aid they provide may not be really aid. So you have to look through it, because you may receive scholarships. Those are great. We want those. Grants are great. Work study opportunities are great. We don't want student loans. You're not going to be able to get a lot of those scholarships and grants that are through the school if you do not have your FAFSA filled out. And be continuing to apply for scholarships. Don't stop just because you've graduated high school or because you started college. If you'd like some advice on doing scholarship applications effectively, you can check out the book Debt Free Degree by Anthony O'Neill. I also will post a list of scholarship opportunities for pastors' kids and missionary kids, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes so you can check out some of those opportunities. The most important thing is keep looking for them. Don't stop looking for them just because you or your student is already in school. Explore work study opportunities. Work study is usually a financial aid benefit where you'll get part of your tuition covered in exchange for working a campus job. There are all sorts of different kinds of campus jobs. This can be a really great way to be working while you're in school and to know that the job you have is actually going to work around your class schedule. It will be offered as part of your financial aid package if that's available to you, but it's usually still up to you to actually go get the campus job once you've received that as part of your package. So make sure to work with your school's financial aid office to understand how those programs work at your school. and what jobs will qualify. This can also be a great way to get good work experience while you're in school. If you can, choose a work-study job. It could do one of a couple things. You could either choose a work-study job that also provides some other benefit that you would normally pay for, like a gym membership or housing, or choose a work-study job that is in line or at least in proximity to the careers that you are considering. And by the way, if you feel like, hey, we filled out the FAFSA and what they're reporting as what we need, maybe it doesn't seem accurate. Maybe there's something that looks like we made more income than we actually did. Something's not right. You can actually appeal to your financial aid office with your school. So I would encourage you, if you think, hey, something looks weird or something changed, we reported this much income last year, and then one of the parents had a situation and is not able to continue work. So last year's tax returns don't reflect our current income. Negotiate. You can work with your financial aid office. So be in communication with them. Don't be avoiding the financial aid office. They can be a resource for you and for your student. So when we're talking about going to school debt-free, or even starting to go to school debt-free, even if you haven't already, we really want to look at two things. We want to reduce your expenses, and we want to increase your income or increase the funds that you have coming in to cover those expenses. So what are some ways you can reduce it? Your student can live at home if that's possible and if it makes sense for your situation. Or they might be able to live with another family member that lives near the campus, and that could be for free or that could be for cheaper rent. You should look at affordable housing options. Compare the cost between living on campus versus off campus, and talk about how you're going to find affordable rentals and how you're going to choose good roommates so that you have a healthy living situation. That's important because that's going to affect how you perform in work and in school. Also look at student discounts and free campus benefits, and those are going to be completely different depending on the school you're on. So usually when you start your school year, it's going to be completely different depending on the school you're at. So usually when you start your school year, there'll be some whole bunch of paperwork or whatever, and some of that may be resources that are free to you or discounted to you if you get them through the school or if they are on campus. So definitely be looking at that. If your school provides a gym membership for free or for seriously discounted, you probably don't need a gym membership somewhere else, right? So be thinking about that. Be in the practice and have your student be in the practice of asking for student discounts wherever they go in whatever business that they're in, because the worst they could say is no. Minimize unnecessary expenses. So eating out and entertainment. The purpose of college is not entertainment. You should have fun while you're in college, but that's not the primary purpose of college. That's not why you're there. And so you don't want to be carrying this heavy debt burden because you spent your money going to the movies or going to expensive games or going out all the time, right? So one thing I noticed when I was in college is that a lot of students didn't know how to cook. And so they didn't know how to cook food that was not just basic minimal stuff. And so because of that, they were eating out or ordering DoorDash a lot of times because they were, get bored with whatever they could make at home. So learn how to cook, or if you're the parent, help your student learn how to cook. It doesn't have to be super fancy, and help them. There's some things that are easy that don't cost a lot of money that still taste really good and can give them some variety, right? And so check out some meal planning apps and start making a plan. Just like you made a plan for what classes you needed to take this semester, make a plan for what you're going to eat this week. It doesn't mean you have to stick to that plan exactly, but it means you have a framework so you've had a long day, you're tired and you're starving, and the drive-through seems like your best opportunity. And then look at what you're spending on textbooks too. So sometimes, depending on the school and the course, sometimes there's an opportunity to buy a used textbook or to rent or to borrow or to use ebooks or open educational resources that you can find online. Sometimes your professor will be great about telling you about these, sometimes they won't, so you need to be able to do your research. You can also share books with classmates, but just be careful about that you've got a good enough relationship with them that you'll be able to negotiate having the book when you actually need the book. That's important. So those are some ways that you can look at reducing your costs. But the biggest ways you can look at reducing your costs are going to be your housing and also your actual tuition, what school that you are going to. And then the other half of the equation is increasing your income and the funds that you have available to you. So we already talked about the scholarships and the financial aid side of the equation. Now, work part-time while you're in school, even if you don't have a work-study job, even if it has to just be a regular part-time job, right? We've actually seen that students who are working part-time while they're in school tend to do better in school because, one, they feel how many hours they had to work to pay for that class, so they really want to do well in that class. And at the same time, they're also learning how to manage their schedule more because they have less free time. There's less downtime to fall into video games or TV shows or even a good book because you're having to navigate your work and your school. So yes, you can work while you're in school, and you can do it while you're doing well at your job and at your studies. And then make the most of those summer breaks or those school breaks. A lot of times you can get seasonal jobs over Christmas, over the summer, to be able to earn some extra income. Your student could start a side hustle or a freelance gig, and especially if they can do something that's in line with their degree field or in line with the job that they want to do, because that just builds on their work experience as well. Check out paid internships in the field that you or your student is going to study. Now, if you're the parent, you're going to suggest that they do this, and they need to be doing the research at this point. But they should be checking out paid internships. That way they're gaining work experience, they're building relationships, which are the number one thing that affects how they're going to do with getting a job. And they're going to be able to earn some additional money. Usually your school's career center will have some great resources to find and secure internships. And also, there are companies that offer education benefits, employee tuition assistance. Be looking at if your student's already working, do they have a tuition assistance program? If they do, is it something that your current school qualifies for, right? And if not, if they're looking for a job, then this is something to consider in that process. There are, especially in the medical industry, there are hospital companies that will pay for your school if you'll then commit to working there for a certain amount of time after. So be doing the research on those things. Don't stop doing the research just because you're already in college, and use those summer breaks or those Christmas breaks to be doing research to find out how you can be getting both work experience and some help with your school expenses. And then there's some things that you can do to actually accelerate your degree. So some schools, especially at the undergraduate level, charge per semester for full time rather than per unit, in which case there can be a benefit to take your maximum course load each semester because you're getting more for your money and you could potentially finish early. Now, you want to be careful about this. When you talk about taking your maximum course load, it's not just the maximum that the school allows. You want it to be the maximum that you really feel like you can do well in those classes. So don't just think about number of units. Think about how you do with that subject in particular, and make sure that you're not overloading yourself, because it doesn't do you any good if you don't do your best in those classes because you put too much on your plate. Those could be at the school that you normally attend, or they could also be at community college. So I did this a few times when I was in school, where I took maybe a general ed class or a lower division class even for my major at a local community college. Some of those I was able to do online, and so those cost a lot less and moved me through my degree program faster. And you do want to just double check to make sure that you're meeting any necessary transfer requirements, that you're not taking more credits than they will allow you to transfer, and that they will meet the requirements for your degree. So that's, again, be working with your college advisors and the advisors for your particular department as well. You can also look into the possibility of testing out of particular classes, such as CLEP tests. There may be other options depending on your school and what your degree program is. You might want to think about online courses. Now, online courses are not a fit for everybody, and there's different ways that they can look. There's a hybrid course where there's an online portion and there's an in-class portion. There's an online synchronous version, which is what we think of when we think about Zoom school from the COVID years, right? Just like a normal class, but it's just on Zoom instead of in person. And then there's asynchronous classes. some of which are going to be go at your own pace, and some of which are still going to be paced by the semester. There's just not a live meeting for it. It's worth investigating. They're not a fit for everybody. For me personally, I'm not a fan of Zoom classes myself, at least not for college stuff, but I really enjoyed the asynchronous classes because I'm more of a reader and I could take the lecture and listen to it and that kind of thing. But every learning style is different, every personality is different. So if you find that you signed up for an online program and you're really struggling, online may not be a fit, or the structure of that particular online program may not be a fit. On the other hand, if you tried it out and this is working, then think about strategically taking some of those classes. Make sure your school may have a residency requirement or a limit on how many online classes you can take. Or if you're planning to go to grad school, the grad school may also have a limit regarding online degrees. So make sure you do your research there. But the nice thing about some of those online classes is that they can cut down on some of your transportation costs. A lot of times they can cut down on your tuition costs depending on where you're taking the course. You may be able to do them at home or navigate them. They may be a little easier to navigate around a job or childcare, that kind of a thing. Okay, now let's talk about your existing debt. So if you or your student is in school and they had never thought about going to school debt free, and now they're listening to this and they're like, I really don't want to have this debt when I graduate. What do we do? So the first thing is commit to no new debt, just like we started at the beginning of the episode. Your first priority at this point is just that commitment to no new debt. What does that mean? That means you have to have a plan when next semester starts and tuition is due. How are you going to pay for it? And also, how are you going to pay for your other expenses because you won't have those student loans? If your student doesn't know how to do a budget, have them check out the Every Dollar app. I also will link in the show notes a blog post that walks you through how to do a budget. And the Financial Peace University course is also great for this too, learning how to do a budget and just generally how to manage your finances. So you want to start with that, because if you can't manage this month's expenses, then you definitely can't manage next semester's expenses. And then your priorities really, you've got that budget working for you. You've got some income coming in. I want you saving for emergencies, and I want you saving for your next semester's tuition and books and any other associated costs that you're going to have next semester. So that means you're just going to save. That doesn't mean you won't spend. That doesn't mean you won't have fun. But it means I don't want you worrying about investing for retirement. I don't even want you necessarily worrying about paying off student loans. If you've got other debts, you may want to prioritize paying those after you've set aside what you need for school. Because if you can do that, you'll free up some margin in your budget. But your first priority is to have the cash set aside so that if you have an emergency, you don't have debt to deal with it. And as you go into the rest of school, you're not needing to take out those student loans. Once, hey, I've got set aside for emergencies, I'm looking good that way, I'm working my budget, and I've set aside what I'm going to need for the rest of school, then you can start working on paying off debt. But if that has to wait till you graduate, that's okay. If you've got high interest stuff, if you've got credit cards, go ahead and take care of those. But your student loans, not so much of a priority. Now, if you graduate school and now you've got this big pile of savings, then go ahead, throw that at your debt. Let's get rid of it. And just some things to be aware of for you or for your student to be aware of, that credit card companies target students. They're sitting out there on Sproul Plaza, where I went to school at UC Berkeley. They're sitting out there wherever, especially on the days when there's a lot of new students, and they've got credit card offers targeted straight students, and they're going to give you a free t-shirt or free whatever if you sign up. Don't do it. Don't fall for it. They're going to tell you that you need to build your credit score. Don't fall for it. The credit score is necessary in order to borrow money. If you're not borrowing money, you don't need a credit score. And these credit cards can really be the thing that helps keep your student from being able to be successful, not just financially, but also in school. Because a lot of the students that drop out of school do so because of the financial pressures. So credit and debt, it's the most marketed thing in our culture. Companies spend bajillions of dollars to get your student to borrow money so they can make money off of your student. So I would just encourage you to make your student aware of these things. Don't be encouraging them to take out credit cards. Be discouraging it. And again, get them in Financial Peace University because that goes a lot more detail into how all of this works and will really bust through some of the myths about those credit cards for them. And I want to encourage you, if you're the student or if you're the parent, to be communicating openly with your family about your finances. Be talking clearly about, hey, what's the expectation here? Ask questions, learn, right? Find a mentor or a financial coach, get with a group of like-minded students, but learn, get some accountability around you because the whole culture is going to be saying, go party, even at a great Christian school. The whole culture is going to be saying, go spend, and it should be really go get a quality degree and good education to get a job. That is your goal. You're going to want to be around people that are sharing that same goal. And then finally, as we wrap up, you want to be planning for what happens after graduation. So start doing your job searching early. If you've got loans, start making a plan for how you're going to get into a place where you can be paying those off as quickly as possible. Be creating a post-graduation budget because for most of you, your housing situation is going to change, your income is going to change. And so start putting it back together because what happens to a lot of people is they were living tight like a college student and then they graduated, they got a great job, and they start spending like the income that they have on that job, but they haven't saved for emergencies, they haven't paid off debt, and they end up really living above their means. And so start by planning early and be prepared to make that transition out of college. So just to recap, if you are in school or your student is already in school, I want to encourage you, if you don't have student loans, don't take them out. If you have student loans, commit to no more debt and getting a plan in place to do your very best in school but also to be in a place financially to be able to pay for it. So I'll make sure to include the resources we mentioned in the show notes. Let's see. So lastly, start planning for post-graduation. Get in those internships like we talked about. Create a post-graduation budget. And if you have loans, understand what your repayment options are before you graduate and be getting an income in place and paying those off as soon as possible if you do have loans from before you said no more new debt, right? Remember, finishing college without any more debt is possible, but it's going to require persistence and creativity and sacrifice. The long-term benefits of graduating without the burden of student loans are just immeasurable, especially for those of you who are considering a career in ministry. I've seen so many youth pastors that are struggling to make ends meet and feed their kids because they're living on a youth pastor salary, which is usually nothing and not much. And they've got this mountain of student loans from their private Christian school. I'd love to hear your success stories or any questions that you might have. You can leave a comment on the show notes at pastorsandmoney.com/podcast, or you can email me at joy@pastorsandmoney.com. If you found this series helpful, please share it with others who might benefit. And if you didn't check out part 1 and 2, part 1 deals with the early years from when you have young kids all the way through the middle of high school. And then part 2 deals with really the second half of high school and how you can help your student go to school debt-free. And don't forget to check out the resources listed in the show notes, including I'll have links there to scholarship opportunities for pastors' kids. So thank you for joining me on this series on sending your pastor's kid to college debt-free. Until next time, this is Suzanne Hunt reminding you that with faith, planning, and perseverance, financial freedom is possible. God bless.